get this right. Apparently, some simple code tweak, like something you could just scribble down, cut data center energy use by like 30%. Wild, right? That's what this Live Science article says anyway. We're talking enough energy to power whole cities. And it's all from a few lines of code. In the Linux operating system, no less. So today we're gonna really dive into this, figure out how it works, what it means, the whole deal.
I think what's so cool is that this kind of shows us how much we can still improve the stuff we use every day.
Yeah.
Especially these data centers, the internet's back.
No, data center, we say it all the time. But honestly, I was prepping for this and I had no clue how much energy they actually use. Hundreds of terawatt hours per year. It's insane.
Think of it like all the energy for cryptocurrency mining. Now double it, maybe even triple it. That's what data centers use in 2022. And get this, all digital stuff, not just data centers. It already uses something like 5% of global energy.
So this company could actually cut a big chunk out of that 5%, which is huge, right? Like global energy crisis, climate change. What's crazy to me is that it's from Waterloo University, not some tech giant, Google, Amazon, whatever.
Little underdog story, right?
Yeah.
But it also shows that innovation can come from anywhere. These researchers, they saw a chance to fix something that everyone just took for granted. How data packets get allocated in the Linux system.
Okay, confession time. I saw asynchronous hardware interrupt requests, and my brain kind of went, nope. Can you explain that for us, non-coders?
Imagine a delivery system that's constantly getting interrupted by notifications, even for unimportant stuff. It gets backed up, slow, wastes tons of energy. That's what was happening with data packets in Linux. This code basically smooths things out, prioritizes important requests, fewer interruptions.
So instead of stopping and starting all the time, the system can just flow better, like a well-organized factory or something?
Exactly. They rearrange the pipeline of those data packets, so there's less running around within the system. The whole thing's up to 45% more efficient.
And all that from just 30 lines of code. Was this like an accident, or were they trying to do this?
It was really careful research, deep understanding of Linux. They weren't looking for a quick fix. They were digging deep.
And it seems like it'll have a huge impact. The article said if Amazon, Google, Meta use this, we're talking gigawatt hours saved globally.
Yep. And Goldman Sachs is saying there's going to be this surge in data center construction because of AI. So this discovery is perfectly timed. All the AI stuff we use, recommendations, voice assistants, that needs a ton of data processing, which means more data centers. More energy use.
It's like we're trying to cut energy use, but at the same time, the need for data is just growing. This code's like a weapon in that fight, right?
Yeah.
But for the average person, what does this all mean? Will our internet get cheaper? Will our phones be faster?
Probably too early to say for sure. But even if we don't see direct benefits immediately, the potential for reducing global energy is massive. And that helps the environment too, so it's important.
It's wild to think 30 lines of code could have that much impact. But also, if it's that simple, why didn't anyone think of it before?
That's the thing about innovation, right? Sometimes the biggest discoveries are right there in front of us. It's not always about making something new. It's about seeing the old stuff in a new way.
Finding those hidden efficiencies, the little tweaks that make a big difference.
Exactly. And this code is a perfect example. They didn't reinvent the wheel or anything, just found a better way to use it. Shows that even small improvements can have a huge impact. Makes you wonder, what other energy savings are out there, just hiding in our digital infrastructure, waiting to be found?
That's a good point, but let's step back for a second. We've been talking about data centers, energy use, but for someone who's not a techie, why should they care? How does this affect them?
That's important, yeah. It's easy to forget. Data centers are what power our digital world. Every time you go online, send an email, watch video, you're using a data center. And the more we use those things, the more energy those data centers need.
So it's not just about saving money on electricity. It's about the environmental impact of living our lives online.
Exactly. Less energy use in data centers means fewer greenhouse gases, helps fight climate change. It's a global issue that affects everyone, basically.
That brings up sustainability in the tech industry, right? As tech gets more advanced, are we making it eco-friendly too?
That's the big question. Honestly, tech develops so fast. Sometimes we don't see the long-term effects until later. That's why we got to prioritize sustainability from the start. Build systems that are energy efficient from the ground up.
This code seems like a step in the right direction, but what else are people doing about data center energy?
Oh, there's a lot going on. One thing is making the hardware itself more efficient. Newer servers, processors, that kind of stuff. They use less power, but are still powerful, or even more so. It's about building in energy efficiency from the hardware level.
So it's both software and hardware then. Are there other approaches too?
Absolutely. Cooling systems are a big one. Data centers make a lot of heat. Keeping them cool takes tons of energy. People are trying new cooling methods, like liquid cooling or even putting data centers in colder places.
I've heard of companies using solar and wind power too for their data centers, I mean.
Yeah, that's getting more common. Renewable energy is getting cheaper, so it's a better option for data centers. Yes. They don't have to rely on fossil fuels as much.
So it's like a multi-pronged attack, right? Not
Yeah.
just one solution, but a bunch of things together. Hardware, software, sustainable energy.
Exactly. You need a holistic approach. And the good news is we're seeing progress on all those fronts. But data and computing power, it's only increasing. Especially with AI, can we keep up with the energy needs?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. It's like we're trying to outrun a wave that keeps getting bigger.
It's a tough challenge, but not impossible. We've seen huge improvements in energy efficiency elsewhere. Look at cars. They use way less fuel now than they did years ago.
Right. And that didn't happen overnight. It took new technology and people demanding change and government regulations too, probably.
Exactly. Same principles apply to tech. It's not just about engineers and scientists. Governments and industries need to push for energy efficiency and make sure data is managed responsibly.
This is turning into a way bigger conversation than just code. It's about how we think about technology,
Right.
and how it affects the environment, basically.
You got it. What started as a simple discovery has led to this much bigger discussion about sustainability in our digital world. But even with all this progress, we can't ignore the potential downsides. What if this code tweak has unintended consequences? What are the risks of making such a big change?
That's a really good question, and it's one we'll explore in the last part of our deep dive. Stick around. All right, welcome back. So we've talked about the potential of this code change, but like with any big innovation, you got to think about the downsides too, right? What could go wrong with something that seems so good?
Well, anytime you make changes across a whole system, especially something as complex as like the internet, you need to be a little skeptical, not to be negative, but to make sure things are done responsibly. Got to ask those tough questions. What if this happens? Sad? That kind of thing.
So with this code, what kind of unintended consequences could there be?
One thing is compatibility. The code's meant for Linux, which, yeah, powers most of the internet. But it might not work perfectly with every single piece of hardware or software. There's always a chance of bugs or conflicts.
Like those warnings on medicine, right? It may cause drowsiness, don't operate heavy machinery, but here it's like, may cause server crashes, don't operate the internet.
Pretty much. We got to test it thoroughly and roll it out carefully. Can't just flip a switch and expect everything to be fine. Kind of like a giant game of Jenga. Pull out the wrong block, the whole thing collapses.
Speaking of disasters, what about security? Could this code make it easier for hackers to break in?
That's a good question. Any software change has that risk. The researchers say their code doesn't create any new security holes. But you got to have independent experts check it out too, before everyone starts using it, I mean. You don't want to fix one problem and create another, especially with systems that have so much sensitive data.
It's like locking your front door but leaving a window open. Yeah, cybersecurity is super important here.
For sure. And here's another thing. Might sound weird, but it could have an economic impact too.
How could a code that saves energy be bad for the economy?
Well, if data centers use a lot less energy, it can mess up the energy market. Power companies that rely on data centers as customers, they could see a drop in demand.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that. So this little code tweak could affect way more than just tech.
Exactly. Everything's connected, right?
Yeah.
A change in one place can have a ripple effect everywhere. Shows you got to think about the big picture when you're solving problems.
This has been really interesting, Started with a simple story about some code. Now we're talking about energy, sustainability, the whole world.
That's what I love about exploring these things. You start with a question, and it takes you down this rabbit hole. You find all these unexpected connections.
So for our listeners, what's a main takeaway here?
I'd say be curious, be critical, and get involved. Question the systems around you, think about how to improve them, and don't think small changes don't matter. You never know. You could be the one to find the next big thing, the next 30 lines of code that changes everything.
And remember, innovation isn't just about new technology. It's also about using what we have in a better way, a more responsible way, for the sake of the planet, really.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's been great talking about this with you.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. Keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you next time.